Welcome to the Tearing It Up podcast. I'm your host, Taryn. We'll be tearing it up, tearing it down, and tearing it apart, dissecting all things related to those who deviate from the standard. From leaders of their industry to leaders of mediocrity, and maybe a gear review or two thrown in. We shoot the shit and let the conversations flow, so if that's not your style, this may not be for you. Otherwise, listen in. Hope to light a fire in you somehow. All right. So we are super excited to be back with another guest, our second kind of interview style guest, our fourth guest overall. Yeah, and I think we had a great interview last week with Cherie from Cherie Ayurveda, and so we're super excited to have Tami Jo this week from the Outspring. And we will have her introduce herself and tell us a little bit about her business and talk about, just what she's doing and how we're going to follow along with her story through it all. So Tami, hello. So lovely to have you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, I am Tami Jo Benson, and I launched the Outspring this year on my 46th birthday. Super excited to do that. And the Outspring is a discovery platform of outdoor brands made for and by women. And what does that mean? That means right now online, you can come to our directory and search products, services, experiences that help you get outside. And they're particularly women-forward solutions that really make it easier, more fun, more comfortable to get outside.
You mean things made for people with ass and titties?
100%. That have to actually pee while you're outside. And,
what a concept.
Need pockets to put things in.
Yeah, what a concept. Big enough for the things that you need.
Actually working.
Yeah.
And it is amazing. And so I stumbled upon Tami, just over social media, I think. Oh, through Basecamp, through this Facebook group that I've been on, outdoor industry, like kind of job group in Facebook. And she had posted about looking for some help for a rally she was doing for some social media content, and mentioned the Outspring in it. And so I started investigating, like, what is this? And I saw her page and just the women empowerment of it. That's kind of a word I don't really like to use, empowerment per se, but I feel like, well, it's the best to kind of describe what I mean. And I just thought it was so cool to have that place to bring everything together, the products, the services. And it's just been something that I have been really passionate about for the last 10 years, basically. The first women's group I got involved in was when I had first moved to Tahoe. And yeah, Amber and I in general are just all about the power of the pussy. So
there you go. And, I appreciate the being disinclined towards using empowerment, because it assumes the power is being given rather than power is already in possession. And so I don't use that word also in a lot of my language. And I do tend to use words like celebration and amplification, and really looking at saying, hey, we are doing this. This work is happening. Let's be in it. Let's share it. Let's see it. So that I 100% hear you on that.
I love that. I love the amplification. I love that. I want to adopt that word rather than like the empowerment. My boss even throws it around at work just for anybody in general. And it just started to become so cheesy. Like, I want to empower you to make the choice. It's like, oh, I feel that I have the power to make the choice, but I just don't know, what choice that is going to be right now or something like that. And when we had a phone call a few weeks ago, and there was another word that you came up with that you were trying to adopt or take over. So my container is like being delivered down the hill right now, so the dogs are going to start barking. But on that note, Tami, if you would like to talk a little bit about the Rebelle Rally and like what that was and how that led you to launching the Offspring or the Outspring. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. That's okay. Yeah. So June of 2021, I guess, I was in a coaching program and they really just offered thinking about what you want to be in the future, what future looks like for you. And I recalled having seen the Rebelle Rally in 2016 when it first launched. And when it came across my Instagram feed, I kind of got just hooked. I wanted to do that. I want that, is how I felt when I saw it. And then I did some research and found that it was pretty significantly expensive. So it's about $12,000 just for the entry. And then you had to provide your own vehicle. So kind of immediately I was like, oh, that's not happening. Right.
Yeah.
I just got to that place of like, nope, I have 4 kids. We're running life. This isn't happening. But it still had its hooks in me. And when I came back to that moment in that coaching program, it resurfaced and I said, I'm doing this. So I made that decision then. And in the fall, I was first in line at registration and put a target for October of 2022 to compete in the rally. So what is this thing? The Rebelle Rally is an all-women's off-road navigation rally for 1,600 miles through the desert of California and Nevada, using only map and compass, no GPS. So we don't have, I see your face, Amber. So we don't have any phones. We're completely offline, and it's really you, your teammate, your vehicle, and your wits navigating through wild spaces and finding checkpoints. So you're given
fun.
Yes, fun and challenging. Yes.
Yeah.
And so I did not know how to off-road when I signed up to do this. And I also needed to find a teammate. I convinced my sister to be my teammate. She's 17 months older than I am. And she has been a total supporter of throughout my life. So it was just beautiful that she was able to carve out the space to join me. And we were team 136, team plotting and scheming, because that is typically how we engage in the world.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, so we kind of just jumped into training. And when we arrived at our first training in Glamis Sand Dunes, which is one of the biggest dunes complex in the US, we did not know how to put our vehicle into 4-wheel drive. We arrived, got a little stuck in the sand, and pulled out the manual to figure out how to get into 4-wheel drive.
That's amazing.
Off to a great start.
Yes.
It could only go up from there.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
So that's just amazing to me that it's all navigation with like map and compass and whatnot. Because today on my little cross country ski adventure that is just right out, just right by my house. I mean, I walk these trails all summer and whatnot. And I'm going along, and I was okay. I don't want to go too far up. I'm going to start to get into the neighbor's property. I'm going to start cutting over. I did check my map just to see, like, make sure I was like, okay, I got to go due east, like, right. Mm-hmm. So I'm going straight across. Then all of a sudden, I finally come back to the road, and I see this house, and I'm like, oh no, like I'm in like so and so's yard. And then I see this tree. I'm like, well, that's interesting. That tree looks exactly like the tree at the bottom of the road. How can there be 2 of them? Like, oh my God, I'm back here. Like, what the heck? I thought I was like 1,000 feet higher than I was. Like, I was like, wow, I have really got to start paying attention to direction and those kinds of things, because my directional skills are so poor. And it just really impresses me when people can use those tools that are not just like the blue dot on their phone. And like, that's how you have to navigate for 1,600 miles. Like, have you ever done any kind of navigating like that before, or like long hikes or paddling trips or anything like that where you relied on navigation skills?
Not really. So to your point around this idea of spatial orientation and really understanding where you are in the context the context of your surroundings. I've used maps, but they always were paired with some sort of GPS device to validate or just confirm, yes, you are where you think you are, and to help me see the path to continue on, right? So similarly, and what's fascinating about those tools is they do kind of take that decision making and that whole cognitive process of orienting yourself into space out of the navigation experience, right? Out of the movement or adventure experience. So the practice or the training for the Rebelle was, for me personally, so I acted as navigator, right? So the team has a driver and a navigator. Some teams will switch back and forth. My sister was very clear that she was driver and I was navigator. So
I have a question. What was your vessel? What was your vehicle?
Oh, the vehicle. Yes. We got a 2004 Nissan Xterra.
Yeah, baby.
Yes. So it kind of already had a few things outfitted on it already. Again, I didn't know anything. So I wanted to get a vehicle that was capable out the gate rather than trying to outfit one or modify one in preparation, because the amount of learning that has to happen across just the Rebelle aspect is significant. And so to add the off-roading understanding is exponentially more difficult.
Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah, our Xterra is named Rio because she dances on the sand.
Oh, I love it. I am just loving every moment of this story.
Yeah. So did you have to, were there like modifications that you had to make? Like did your vehicle have to have certain things to be able to enter the rally, or could it be like whatever you wanted?
That's a good question. So the Rally has two classifications. First is the all-wheel drive, so your Subarus, things like that, your Kias that have all-wheel drive capability, and then your 4x4s that have a transfer case. So those are the essential requirements. They do have a bone stock award that if you have no additional modifications to your vehicle, then you get an extra award. Ours came with some modifications, so some shocks and some plates underneath, whatever those are called. So we had a modified vehicle. Now it needed fixes, but it did not need modifications. Unless you would call a modification like vehicle wraps or patches or anything like that. We did lots of fun things like that to modify our visuals.
Yeah. Did the Xterra have the transfer case?
Yes, it
and
did.
That's what you guys needed to figure out how to get the guy going, her going. Rio.
Yes.
I love that name so much. So where does Rio sit today? Is she ready? Like, is she planning another rally? I mean, we'll definitely get into more details, but maybe we'll save that one for later.
Yes. Let's save it for later. But she is in my driveway, and she still has all the stickers and decals.
Good. So
I love it.
1600. Now, was this rally? I'm sorry if you did mention this. Like, was it a race, or was it like, maybe for you guys it was just for fun, but was the idea of like, there's going to be like, was it competitive?
It is definitely competitive, and it is definitely not a race. So that's a very clear distinction from nearly every other rally that's out there. This is a competition for points and not for speed. What that means is each of the checkpoints that are out there that you can navigate to accurately, you get a point or a set of points for those checkpoints, and your cumulative scores over the 7 scored days are what sets your rankings. So we were in it to win it. What win it means, right, is different for each team.
Absolutely.
Yes, that is a great point.
Yeah, you're winning. It could be like completing it, or some person's winning it could be getting started.
Mm-hmm. Yes, What's fascinating about how the Rebelle team has built this competition is that it is challenging no matter who you are. And so it is a competition with the course more than it is a competition with your fellow competitors, right? It is incredibly difficult, and it is very much your team working against the challenges that you're up against.
And so you said 1,600 miles, and then you just mentioned something like 7 days. So
Right.
did you was there that 7 days set to complete it? And if, you at that end of the 7 days, wherever you were, like you just like that was it, that was a wrap?
It's a good question. The format, we have a couple days on either end for kind of getting oriented at the beginning, making sure our vehicles are all set to go. At the end, they have a celebration, which is nice. They also do a practice day, essentially, where they call it rally school, where they send you out and you do what a full day of scored competition would be like, so that you get a sense, can we do this thing, or do we need to call it, or what do you need some more help to kind of get yourself through the day. That practice day was super helpful as a rookie, because you don't have the pressure of scoring, but you do have a full end-to-end day to understand how to play the game. Then it's 7 days of scored competition. Each day you're starting at a base camp. You go out and find your checkpoints, and then you return to base camp in the evening. Each team will be there on their own to figure out how many checkpoints they try to achieve, what the path is, the timing for all of that. That's up to the teams to strategize, but return to base camp in the evening is critical. There's kind of a time window for returning in the evening. So you get a little bit of a reset between each of those stages. There is one night where we do self camp. We do kind of head out and then camp in a separate location and then return together. But yeah, it is a lot. And in addition, the entire game is in kilometers. So you're also converting to kilometers during that process.
Us poor Americans.
Yeah, no kidding. I'm so awful. I spent 3 months in Nicaragua years back, and so I felt like I was starting to get a hang of it for a minute of converting. And that whole time I'm just like, man, it would just be so much easier. Like, why do we have to be the only ones to use these metric systems and weights that like just no one else uses? It's so silly to me. Like, come on, even 100%. Just Celsius. Like, let's go.
Right. And kind of back to this idea of spatial awareness. Miles, feet are odd segments, right? And they're also kind of difficult to visualize in some ways. So one of the key skills is to be able to visualize how far a kilometer is and to break that down into meters so that you can traverse to the correct location. And so, kilometers is much easier than feet and miles.
So are you familiar with desert terrain?
I was not familiar with desert terrain, especially not sand dunes, which are a whole other ball game, tactical experience.
Yeah, because I was thinking of like trying to judge a mile in front of me or a quarter, half mile in front of me, and just thinking of that in the desert, my mind broke a little.
Yeah, totally. Like a nautical mile, even, or something, like you're on the water, and or even anywhere where you're just the horizon is the only thing you see on a long like through hike on these trails like Pacific Crest Trail. It's like how on earth do you start to judge, like, that's thousands of miles away, but how do you look to just 1 mile or 1 kilometer ahead or whatnot?
Or even the stars. Oh, sorry about that.
Well, that's okay. The horizon is an interesting aspect, and it's obviously water is a little different, but the horizon when you're hiking or off-roading is actually a useful tool, because even though you can't your map may or may not have that horizon line or that feature indicated on it. It is helpful in orienting yourself to a direction.
Yeah.
So one of the interesting skills to have as a team is to be able to communicate with each other what is on the horizon and what you are orienting towards. So
Yeah.
imagine sitting there just describing what that hill looks like. Okay, there's a bump, there's a slide, and then this jaggy point, and you've got to like make
Yeah.
sure that you understand each other, because the navigator is determining where you go, but the driver has to get there. So they have to visualize it. They have to be able to land it so that they can take the vehicle there.
What a trip.
That is
Yes.
amazing. I mean, all of it is just amazing. The fact that you guys started as complete rookies, it's kind of been a theme for us really in the last year or so of being a like adults starting something new. Especially Amber and I had played sports and snowboarded since we were teenagers. And I mean, cross country skiing's like new to me, snowmobiling's new to me. They don't feel like complete new because I've like been in the snow, but it's still different and new. And this whole idea of being like full on adult mom, just anything, and then picking something up seemingly out of the blue and deciding like I'm gonna do this, and especially something that's as immersive as the Rebelle Rally. Like you're not just like, hey, I'm gonna go do this for a day and kind of do it here and there when I want for fun. Like you're fully committed to like being out there and just having to figure it out. But are you hooked on it now, like on the experience and the rallying kind of thing? Like would you be like, yeah, I'm gonna go to the sand dunes for a weekend and rip it up?
It's a good question, and I have to be honest that I would ask myself, wait, why? Just this kind of, what did I do? Right? Why did I sign up for this? Again, I could have just gone and taken a class for a weekend and probably felt, you know, uh, oh, this is a thing I'm interested in. I didn't even know if I would like it.
Right,
Right. I had
yeah.
no idea if
Yeah.
I liked
Yeah.
off-roading at all, which isn't typically an experience I would go after. Motorized sports is not in my wheelhouse. Right. So um, it is interesting though, talking about taking on something new. And so there's so many strategies to approach that. And I personally love learning new things. I get excited by that. And I love dipping into other ways of being. I grew up in a high demand religion that really just encouraged me towards motherhood as my sole place to experience this go around on the planet. And so some of this has been a a journey into learning a new way, and that there are so many ways to be in the world, and this is one of them,
Yeah.
right? And so your question around, am I hooked, am I going to do this thing all the time, I don't really know. Likely I'm just going to keep trying all the things, and use some of this in this experience to inspire me to do other things, but then add to my tool belt of skills. So being willing to, so again, one of the strategies, right, is being willing to understand that you're going to make mistakes. It's not going to be perfect that first time around. And that's part of the beauty of it, is that you're
Yes.
out there
Yes.
doing this wild and dynamic thing that nobody really knows how to do. There's very few rebels on the planet that have done this thing, right? So it's not like there's a huge pool of comparison. That it really is just you taking on this thing that is tremendous. And how is that for you? And what does that mean for you and your teammate?
Yeah.
So it is a lot. So to really directly answer your question, I am not currently signed up for the Rebelle. I would love to have some sponsors for the Rebelle,
Oh
because
yes.
like I said, it
Yeah.
is a financial commitment.
Yes.
Yeah,
Um,
huge. That's I mean, that's great. We ourselves are looking for sponsors. So anybody who wants to sponsor anything about this podcast, let us all
Yay.
know. Let us
yes.
know. We're open. We are open to it. You mentioned, that just about your teammate and learning and everything too. So how did your sister feel like, was this all brand new for her as well, or did she didn't have any like off-roading experience either or anything? It was brand new for both of you.
Yes, brand new
Okay,
for both of us.
that's amazing to experience together.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And you know, we're close. Like I said, we're 17 months apart, and she and I have even in our adult life been quite close. She was the doula. She became a doula for my four while I had four children. So she became a doula
Wow.
for that, right? So
How
this is a
beautiful.
yes, this is a person who is just so generous. And she was just willing, right? She's not typically a camper, would not identify as an outdoorsy person. However, she loves adventure, and she is a yes to adventure. So she was like just so fabulous in terms of supporting the process. She was the director of Vibe. So what that meant is she would make sure we had snacks. She would make sure there was music for our start, for our finish. Every time we
Hype
roll up,
girl.
yes, every time we
Yes.
rolled up to the fuel line, she had the music going, and we were just connecting with folks there. And that speaks to one of the strategies on the Rebelle as well, that it's exhausting, right? You're out there for 10 to 12 hours
Yeah.
in a day. It's a lot. You're camping. The elements are very present. It's might be really cold. It might be really hot. So having somebody hold that space to keep the forward thinking, to keep the optimism, and also like, hey, now's a break time. Now's where we can just kind of settle in for a second and take a breath.
Yeah.
Emily Miller uses an approach, which I really appreciate, called CAR. CAR stands for comfort, accuracy, relaxed. And it's this assessment that you
Ooh.
do as you're coming up on challenges. Are you comfortable? Are you accurate? Where are you headed where you think you're going, right? And are you relaxed? Because all of those elements will change your decision making, your line choice, how you actually move the vehicle. So it's a really great framework to think about choosing how to be in challenging moments.
That's awesome.
I love that.
I love that so much for sure. I wrote that all down, car. Um, so did that brings me to actually like your day to day. Was every day like very different, or were they pretty much like the same out there? Obviously there would be different challenges that came up, but can you like walk us through a little bit of how the day from like sun up to sundown went on the rally?
I appreciate the sun up to sundown, because we were up before the sun was up, and we were down before the sun was down, often because we were too tired.
I figured it
Yeah.
would be something like that.
Yeah. So Emily Miller rings a cowbell gingerly at 5 a.m. for everyone to wake up and make their way to the shared tent. Each day, so you get your maps prior to the rally starting. We had about 15 different maps that would be over the course of the whole week. But each day you would get your checkpoints. So that framed the strategies and the plans for the day. So typically the driver will handle breaking down camp, resetting the vehicle, getting all of that stuff figured out. And the navigator will head in and find a table, set out maps, and get to plotting. The actual plotting of getting out the rulers and the pencils and finding a really tiny dot somewhere on a map.
Wow.
So that's usually an hour or two with breakfast. They have a Michelin star chef making meals, so you have got your breakfast and your dinners like handled, which is really great.
Sounds worth it right there.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, I know. I was like, I don't have sign me up.
Oh, you broke up a bit, Amber.
Oh, I said, sign me up.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. Yeah.
Yes, yes. So it actually is really great to be fueled properly, because if you also had to take on feeding yourself, it'd be easy to let that slide a little bit. So being fueled properly for this adventure is pretty critical. And so yeah, you'll have some breakfast, you'll be plotting. Each team has a different start time. You're staggered by 2 to 3 minutes each. First team gets out the gate at 7. Usually the last team gets out around 8:30. And then you just figure out what you're going to do for the day, your route, how it's going to be organized. You get a debrief from the Rebelle team in the morning on what you might see, because sometimes there are, rain slide, it's been raining and there's mudslides or things that are closed off to adjust to. But you're out there kind of coming up with your plan for the day as a team, and you spend 10 hours finding those little dots on maps and driving yourself to that location. Each day the framework of the game would change. And this is, again, the Rebelle team is so amazing at curating a epic experience. Not only are you out in wild spaces, beautiful locations, unique locations, right? The team also finds challenging, beautiful, and unusual checkpoints to navigate through, so that you can see some really interesting landscape through the journey. So the course itself is fascinating, but then they change up how the game is played that day. So it might be that you have a segment where you are kind of just choosing whatever checkpoint you want. It might be that you have to go in a specific order. They also throw in something called an enduro, which strikes fear in the heart of every Rebelle, which is a section that relies on a road book for navigation. And sometimes you have to do
a road
that.
book.
Yes, a road book.
I do not know this
term. Yes.
You speak of.
Yes. A road book is a set of waypoints and directions that essentially get for you from one place to the next. It's kind of like your old MapQuest style, where it would give you those turn by turn directions, except you don't get all the turns. You get some other data points, right? You get here's what you might see when you're at this location. So it gives you your distance between waypoints, and sometimes you have to do those distances on a specific time. So down to the second, you need to be right at that cow grate fence, right? That's your point. You got to get there on that second.
Wow.
What a trip. I'm just like blown away by this. And good on you and your sister for doing it together. Like, sister relationships can be challenging, and it sounds like you guys are particularly lucky, and good on y'all. That is just so. And so how many teams are all doing with you?
Breaking up again there, but I think we got it. How many teams are out there?
Teams.
Yes. Sorry about that.
Yeah, so we had this year, there were 55 teams, I believe. So it's all women. So driver, navigator, vehicle, that's what comprises the team. So there were about 55 teams this year. And again, they're broken into the two classes. So I think the crossover class had about 8 teams, and then the remainder were in the 4x4 class.
Wow. Is there a reason so few are in the crossovers category?
That's a good question. It's a good question. I think mostly it's that the capacity of the vehicles, right? So there's a far more off-road vehicle, like 4x4 vehicles, than there are crossover vehicles.
Okay.
That actually, I don't know that. I'm not enough of an automotive junkie to know that.
Yeah,
if that's true. But I would say perhaps if you're a person that likes off-roading, you likely have a transfer case.
Mm-hmm.
However, one of the beautiful approaches that Emily Miller has brought to this competition is that you can do this with the vehicle in your driveway. And so there's two kind of separate courses, one that's for the all-wheel drives and one that's for the 4x4s. And so I'm more crossovers. Let's get them out there.
Yeah, like just growing everything, right? I mean, I feel like that stat's almost like any other kind of more male dominated sports where that's what you would see is like there's 40 some in the men and then 8 in the women. Like
Right.
a girl that I work with, she is an ultra runner, and she was talking about some like one of the big races for the UTMB, which is like a professional ultra trails running association, and that there was just an astronomically low amount of women for this race and so much more men, and how much that affects things of like pay, or the
Mhm.
purses, the prize purses and whatnot, which is a whole nother like episode we dive into and stuff. But so it's cool, at least it's still all women, but it's like, yeah, how do we get 50 on this side and 50 on that side, like
Mhm.
that
Yeah.
would be amazing to just see it grow. And did you say in 2016 was when you started following it, or was that the first rally at all?
Both. So it
Oh,
was
okay,
the first rally, and I just had my eye on it since then.
cool. That's
Yeah.
amazing. I mean, just, I feel like personally, I put a lot of pressure on myself when I find something like that I want to do, whether it's like there's a lot of courses I've wanted to take for furthering my education, whether that was like my avalanche education or for my personal training certifications and stuff like that. And um finances are always what halts those, but I would put so much pressure into it, like when I found out about something, if I couldn't do it right then and there and sign up, then I felt like it would never happen. And as I am now, like getting into my, well, I guess in my mid 30s, and I'm starting to see some things happen that I wanted to happen in my early 20s. I'm like, okay, like, yeah, you just can't rush everything. Like, things are going to happen when they should happen. And that's a
Mhm.
very hard thing to remember and hold on to when you're into these moments of like, I really want to do this, and to think that maybe won't happen until 8 years down the road,
Mhm.
is, like I said, just a hard concept to hold on to in the moment. So the fact that you had been following this for almost 8 years or so, 7 or 8 years, and here you finally did it, is just speaks volumes to the fact that don't forget about the things that you want to do just because you can't do it right at that
Yeah.
moment. Like, it can
Yeah.
still happen. You just have to have some patience, and if you really want it, then you'll make it happen eventually.
Yeah. And the desire will resurface, right? I think that's also part of it, is recognizing that when you're called to do something like this, then it'll keep calling.
Yeah.
And I do think, there is something about uh, getting yourself in a space that's also where you want to be, right? Because I had to do some work around the financial aspect, because I would never think to spend that kind of money on myself, on my own personal growth and my own personal experience. I would 100% do something like that for my kids, but to do it for
Yeah.
myself, I had some work to do on for my own experience, to say, what do I value? What experiences matter to me? How do I want to be in this world, right? So as much as I wanted to do this thing, I don't think I was ready for that choice in 2016, right? I think I know I'm a different person than I was then, and so 100% it was a different experience, because of the changes that I made personally. And I'm just really still in transformation, letting the work of this epic experience continue within me. I don't yet know how it has changed who I am. And at first, I wanted to know what that was going to be right away. It was a question I would ask Rebels
Yeah.
really often, like, how did this thing change you? And well, A, that's none of my business. But B, like, who's to say it's a one and done kind of thing, right?
Right.
Totally.
It is a doorway into a new self,
Mhm.
not a moment on it's not a checkpoint, right? It's a
Yeah,
path. It's a
for
larger
Yeah.
sure.
picture.
Well, I feel like
Beautiful interpretation.
a lot of any kind of yoga retreat or something like that, people expect to come back completely changed. Like, like just right away, not like there is the small changes happen within you and then you see them slowly progressively happen throughout your just day-to-day life. You're just like, nope, I'm totally different now. Old me's gone. Here's the new me. I've bloomed. I'm flying away now into my new world. It's like, yeah, these things will remain with you and slowly like surface and really change, at least, you know and I think that's a better way to do it, where it actually is real change within you. You can easily like have walked out of the Rebelle Rally saying, this is who I am now, and like squished your old self or something. But it's just like, just because I'm in personal training, I feel like this is an easy analogy, like a fad diet. You're just like, I'm going to cut everything. No sugar, no this, no that. Do it for a month, but it's like that doesn't hold. That's not sustainable. So the same thing with these just like personal changes and growth. It's like it's slow and it can be painful. But
yes, yeah, and that's a really great point. Even in the course of, so one of the interesting things about doing something so intensely for so many days, you get reps in a like totally different way than you normally do, right? So it's this really compressed experience. So there's this a feeling that day 3 kind of just hits you like a wall, and usually that's when some conflict happens or some personal stuff kind of shows up. So everyone experiences their day 3 in a different time, but there is something to be said for just working at it, right? And saying like, this is uncomfortable, this is new, this is hard. I am not who I thought I was going to be in this moment. I thought I would be maybe a little more fun. Yeah. I thought maybe I would be, just embracing the adventure of it all. And I was dismissive of the work that it was and how taxing that was on my body. And so all of that kind of goes into the strategies around playing too, right? Is because the emotional side of the experience is significant.
Yes.
Absolutely. And so when you're out there and you're driving for like 10 hours, one kind of just you said you're in beautiful destinations and stuff. And so like as the navigator, this is really just a side silly question, like, did that mean you got to take pictures at all, or did your eyes have to be on the map at all times? Did you get some like cool shots?
Oh, that's we pondered, we noodled on that idea. Were we going to have time to take pictures? Were we going to have the bandwidth, the mental bandwidth? Okay, then what are the tools that we do use that for? Because we don't have our phones, right? Because that's your quick access to a camera. And both of us were really cognizant of the load, the workload of every day, and not knowing what we were getting into. We made the decision to put a GoPro inside the cabin facing us, and then one facing out, so that you could kind of see from the vehicle's view, and then kind of let it go, because we just couldn't figure out how we would take that on. The Rebelle team does have photographers out there taking pictures of the teams throughout. So we did get a few snapshots in there of us, finding checkpoints or driving through wild destinations. But ultimately, something about taking the photo actually takes you out of the moment.
Absolutely.
So, for sure.
I have an internal battle with that. I've always had cameras of some sort, whether it's phone or digital cameras or whatnot back in the day, where I loved to document everything, but there's certain times and places and moments where you're just like, I need to be here and be present. And I want to watch the sun setting with my eyes and the complete view I have, rather than through this tiny screen. And like, what am I doing? I can rewatch this, but I can't rewatch it like personally right now. Like, so I totally understand. I'm in this funny place now of trying to get back into getting more camera or pictures and videos and stuff. But yeah, navigating like what points in life, I should be doing that or should be completely present is interesting this day and age. But that brings me to another question of, so if you didn't have much time to like snap a quick picture, then when do you have time to pee?
Oh, Such a good question. Yeah, remembering to eat, to take care of your body is really challenging. Um, so you also need to be hydrating because you're out in the desert. So
Yeah.
you actually do need to be peeing a lot. If you haven't peed in the last 20 minutes, you're not drinking enough water,
Oh
right?
my God. Yeah.
So what that means is there's a lot of just like pull over, open the door, let's go. Um, so um, one of the fun challenges I added to on for this experience for myself was that I wore as many women-owned brands as I could on this adventure. So that meant about 95% of my outfits, my wardrobe, my gear closet were women-owned companies, and I had the benefit of bringing 3 separate pairs of pants that all opened at the middle so that you could open them and squat and pee really quickly without fully having to pull down your pants. So
Love that.
yes, so the three companies are She Fly, so they have a nice hiking pant that has a zipper through the middle. Then there's another company, Zip Hers. I wore their shorts, so they were kind of biker shorts that also have a full zipper through the middle. And the final one is Chick Fly, and they make more of a yoga style pant, and it has kind of flaps, 2 separate flaps that you can kind of pull aside to jump out and pee.
Brilliant.
Yes.
Love
And
it.
it was so great to have those because it meant a much quicker experience, like jumping out. A lot of the rebels will use urinary devices. My sister did use a couple kind of sheepy type things. And that worked really well for her as well. But yes, 100%. Where do you find time? You make the time.
Yeah, capitalize on it. I mean, I do that on road trips. I'm like, I pull over and just open the door because often I try like really hard to hold it as long as I can. And then I'm like, oh my God, I haven't seen a sign in a while. I don't know if I can make it. I just have to do that. But I've seen some of these brands, well, really only She Fly, out of the 3 that you mentioned is what I had been familiar with and seen on the interwebs. And I've definitely been curious of them. And I just thought about this the other day, though. I think I follow them on TikTok. I've heard their TikTok's really, really great. So I've been trying to follow brands like that for my paying job to get some ideas. And I was all of a sudden I'm like, wait, so does that mean like you just go commando in those? Like you can't really, or
it's personal choice, right? I prefer to have underwear.
yeah.
And I just prefer to have ones that are flexible enough that you could pull to the side.
Ah, got it. That's the trick.
And for me, just you're in it all day long, and then you're wearing the same pairs of pants for 7 days, 8 days. So trying to just draw out the longevity of its freshness.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, I didn't think about the kind of like, well, just not having experience with them and really knowing how what the range of the zipper was or anything, and how it would be possible to wear anything under. And with your experience, a lot of that's a unique experience of wearing the same pants like over and over for a lot of times. Maybe it's someone's going out for a day hike or something, but then that's allows you to, if you were to go to on a backpacking trip, like here's your one pair of pants, and you're just using some underwear or whatnot, and you can still just, it's also like a little more sense of privacy. You ain't gotta fall over with your bum in the snow. I mean, I gotta do that all the time. Expose my butt to the cold air and snow. I'm like, okay, isn't that cool? But
definitely.
That's amazing. So what kind of motivated you and made you decide that you're gonna go like take this extra challenge on of wearing only women's brands and kind of test them out? Were you just testing for your own personal experience with these clothes, or like what sprung that?
So what sprung that was the Outspring. Thank you.
Didn't even try. Did not
I
try.
I saw how effortless that was. It was beautiful. So I'll back up just a little bit and say that so like I said, I purchased a vehicle from someone who teaches how to off-road, and he said, hey, there's this event that's happening. I think you'd really enjoy it. And it was Overland Expo in Arizona. So it was 2 weeks from the time that I purchased the vehicle. So we jumped in, decided to go, drove down there. And that's where I had this kind of initial experience of, hey, there are not a lot of women-owned companies here at this event. I'm curious, where are the ladies and what are they doing differently? Right. And so I just went through the whole venue asking that question. And towards the end, I came away with maybe 6 to 8 women-owned brands and maybe another dozen or so wife-husband teams. And I just thought, this cannot be, this cannot be so. And that is where I got the inspiration to build the Outspring, and really find a way to collect all of this work that's happening for making the outdoors better for women, making it more accessible, more comfortable. And so that was kind of that initial moment. And then throughout my time of training, I was also building the business, building the technical sides of it. And so I've just been in collection of what are women, where are the ladies at and how are they doing it differently? And so currently there's about 135 brands on the platform. And so I was really looking through them to have the gear that I would need to do this adventure. And that is really the point, is to say, hey, you can find solutions that are for you as a person, right, as a woman, as a person who has a different body type than what's been represented thus far. And so it was an experiment, right? How much can I outfit myself? What are those whether it's apparel or gear items, and how do they stand up over 7-8 days, right? And
yeah, to the real test.
Yeah. So that's what inspired that decision. In addition, one of the ethos one of the principles for the Outspring is to just pay women, right? Just pay them for the work that they're doing. So throughout the building process, whether it's finding a female designer or developer or a font designer, throughout, I'm looking to support women in this process. And so that includes all of these other aspects as well.
That's just an awesome story. And I mean, there's no better way, with whether you're a woman or a woman identifying person or anything. I mean, you don't really know how any gear is going to work or fit you until you try it. Because I mean, even like men, yeah, they all have different body shapes. Women, just there's more varieties of it, and I think different needs. But that's what gets frustrating in finding gear, is like, is it really going to be functional? And I mean, you're spending your time and money on products and whatnot. And so many times for some of this women's gear who is that's maybe not made by women specifically, is that it's a failed effort for some, like to us, which can be a simple reason of like, well, it's not just a dumbed down version, or from the outdoor industry, the common phrase is shrink it and pink it. So you're taking a men's bike or snowboard or whatever, making it a little bit smaller and throwing some pink and purple graphics on it and making it softer, and then it's good to go. And it's just like, yeah, no, like not every woman is, 5'5" and 120 pounds or whatever. So it doesn't work. And same with clothing, like apparel or clothing. A lot of these apparel companies in the outdoor industry, to make a women's version, they're just like, oh yeah, we'll just make it a little bit smaller here, like maybe a little bigger in the hips, like whatever differences. But it's like, yeah, these functionalities still don't work for me. I mean, maybe women more often have smaller hands, but I don't think any woman's hands are so small that they can only fit like the top quarter of their fingers in their pockets. So who decided pockets were that big? I don't know. But that's just amazing to take on for yourself and to test all these things out, and then to be able to be a voice for these brands too by bringing them onto something like the Outspring. And before the rally, when did you have plans to launch the Outspring? What was your idea on it before that started?
Well, let's see. I launched the first prototype, or I made the first prototype public in March of 2022. And as I saw, I finally landed on what the technical sides of it would be, and started to formulate this idea around gathering, testing out the gear. It started to just be obvious that the Outspring should sponsor our team on the Rebelle. So the Outspring is branded throughout our vehicle and throughout our work there. So that was a real nice alignment. And it just felt like this is a big moment. It's a big moment for me personally. And it feels like the right fit, because not only was my Rebelle experience just to decide to compete was the origin of this business. It seemed appropriate to have those official start times be to coincide. And what was fascinating about that is I am offline, right, for that whole time. And so what does it mean to launch a business when you're offline?
Yeah.
And so it was bringing in somebody to run the social media aspect of it. And I found someone pretty quickly before the event, right? Because that also emerged as it got closer. I was like, you know what, I really need to do this, this aspect that I hadn't settled on, right? So I'm like, okay, well, I guess I need to find a social media person. Okay, here they are 2 weeks before, 3 weeks before the event. And so she really handled the entire storytelling without me. I gave her some frameworks, I gave her some, like assets or stories, but not a lot of the Outspring voice is out there, right? There's the web page, and that was about it. So she really handled that launch really well, alongside just telling the story of our team. So yeah, I'm out in the desert while people are finding out about this work that I'm doing. So that was
Wow.
also a fascinating piece to kind of return home to and say, okay, this is happening, right?
Yeah.
Here's the next chapter on this adventure.
So when did it officially launch, like the first day of the rally, or was it like mid rally or?
Yeah. So again, it's like 5,000 days that it seems like you're out there.
Yeah, totally.
Because there's 2 days of tech inspection, and then the practice day, and then 7 days of scored competition, and then a final day of celebration. So end to end, that's like 10 days, right?
Yeah.
11 days. And so my birthday was the practice day. So that's why we picked that day to launch. So I was technically online, but I was quite busy.
Yeah.
So all of that alignment just seemed right.
That's
Right
amazing.
here.
It's kind
Here
of
is the
like,
celebration.
and yeah, then after the 11th day or whatnot, it's like, oh, you're coming to your like home to your belated surprise party. Like, here's all these people
Yes.
that now know about you and follow you and support this brand new endeavor in a brand new year of life for you.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
amazing. And so with the Outspring now, like with the after finishing the rally and yeah, realizing like there's some personal growth you've experienced from it that you're still experiencing and experiencing with your business, what are your like what's next for the Outspring? Where's the Outspring standing right now today?
Yes. So as I said, there's about 135 brands on the platform, and we're continuing to add more. I think I have a queue of about 300 that I need to add in.
Wow.
Yeah. So the my intention, though, with the process of adding brands is to be thoughtful around curation, because it's nice to have a list, but it's even better to have something searchable and something
Mm-hmm.
that gives you some contextual understanding. So there's been a fair amount of criteria that we're assessing each brand on. So thinking about, okay, what does it mean to be women owned? What does it mean to have women forward solutions? And one of the other threads that's been super exciting is to see how many women in the process of building their businesses are thinking about impact on people and planet. And that is also a root of their work, is to say, not only do we want to provide products and services and experiences for this demographic, but we also want to be mindful about the people that we interact with, that we affect in this process. So we do some articulation around their impact on the planet and people in their communities as well. So that means there's some thought that goes to adding a brand onto the platform,
which is like great. I mean, I don't think it should be any willy-nilly like, hey, you're women owned or make a like whatever, like you're in. I think any brand needs to kind of be looked at like that. And I also think that it would provide some accountability for that. You know, if somebody was really wanting to be a part of this larger thing and be a part of the Outspring, and maybe that was some critical feedback for them, like, look, we're really looking for people who align with our ethos, and it could be an eye-opening thing for that brand to like, oh yeah, well, we can do this a little bit better, and we're going to try because we want to be a part of the bigger movement. And if that's what we need to do it, then that could get them started in that.
Right. And some of the underlying reasoning for that is to recognize that there's a lot of the market that wants that information, right? That the transparency around production and manufacturing is becoming a key decision point for consumers. So I think that's another aspect that I'm looking to articulate, right? And there's some certification programs out there, and eventually we'll probably align with one that is the right fit in terms of looking at that identity factor, and then also looking at the impact factors. I don't intend to kind of regenerate those things. It is largely about saying, this is the attitude, the approach, the perspective that we have in this business. And as the Outspring, we're giving it to you in a way that is functionally supportive, right? I need shoes today, right? I'm searching. What does that mean? Because the algorithms that we're up against as small business owners are significant. And so this is a way to kind of offer another search and discovery, like another discovery mechanism.
Right.
Yeah.
I do have a quick question with, so 300 brands like in the queue on top of the 135, and these brands are including, they're not just apparel or like gear, it's including like services and whatnot, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
And these are not all limited to like outdoor or health and wellness brands. Is that like most of them, or is there any kind of category, I guess, that you would say that the Outspring it like mainly focuses on?
So I'll make a little correction there. So there are platforms that talk about specifically women owned as a broad across all industries. So Wild Rise initiative with Women Led Wednesday is one of those. There's another organization called We Are Women Owned. They tend to kind of be that broader products orientation, some services. The Outspring is specifically outdoors.
Okay.
So we're pretty focused on that right now. It is about enabling resources for you to get outside. What is different is that it's not limited to products, and the services are a component as well, but experiences and stories are also really critical in the broader market, right? Being able to have access to experiences that are geared towards a woman's experience, right? Or lived experience, right? So retreats, communities, events that are happening, any number of those kinds of things. And then also storytelling, right? So you want to see it, you want to hear it, you want to experience it in order to see what's possible. So blogs, books, film, any of the other aspects for stories are also included. So it is looking across the broader outdoor industry with that specific lens of women forward businesses.
Awesome. Okay. Very cool. With the experiences and events and whatnot, retreats and all that, is that's something on your mind, obviously, of being able to bring women together in that way that enables them to experience the outdoors and share their stories. So do you want to talk a little bit about what the just a little intro, I guess, into what the Outspring has planned for the next year or where you're going?
Yes. So my experience prior to the Rebelle is in large event production. So when I had that moment of this cannot be, where are the ladies at, and how can I bring them together? It was envisioning a large in-person event that brings together all of these women and the work that they're doing. So we're targeting an event in 2023 in the fall, and really looking to have 100 brands there and several hundred women attending, and information of what exactly that looks like and where exactly it will be. But I'm very clear about making it happen, and taking an experimental and just kind of iterative approach in the process. I've been just putting that out there into the world to find a venue, to find collaborators, to find the right fit in terms of a location and a community to land the home for this. And I do believe that magic happens when women gather, and it is even extra special when it's outside.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I couldn't agree more. I feel like for those of you who haven't been to the website yet, should definitely check it out, theoutspring.com. And I feel like this event is just like the website in real life. Like in all of these things, like here's the brands, the equipment, the gear, the clothing, and the experiences and the storytelling. It's all gonna be just in person and able to be experienced by so many. And I'm really excited to be able to continue to talk to you about this as it's evolving, and just setting those intentions also for you out there to find that place where it can all happen. I've been a part of women's organizations and retreats and different things, and that's why I can 100% agree that special things just happen when you're together and outdoors. And we have this view, I don't know where exactly it stemmed from, but this putting like women against each other mentality. And so I feel like a lot of women are worried about being in groups of women. You hear a lot of women say that, like, oh, I'm a guy's girl, I have mostly guy friends, I just get along better with them and whatnot. And because so many women have this competitive nature about them, so yeah, in a group of women you don't know and you're all trying to like be the best, then it's, yeah, you don't get along as easily. But when you're with a group of guys and you're like, oh, I'm not competing against the guys, then it can be a little easier to have the fun. But to just get rid of that notion that why do we need to be competing? If we're comfortable being out with our guy friends, not competing against them, then why can't we be out with our girlfriends, not competing against them? And so I think just introducing the idea to women that we can all hang out and it's not going to be a cat fight is still such an idea for people that they don't get. The outdoor industry specifically there's so many more events and things happening, clinics and like mountain bike rides or ski days, or so many different groups out there that do these things. So the idea is getting out there, but I think having an event to this caliber that then those women can go out and spread it into their communities that aren't exactly like, take it to your office. Someone's going to be doing this on a weekend, and if you're a manager, CEO, anybody, just a employee, like bring that sense of community to your office. Like, we're not just fighting against each other all the time. And so I'm just all for bringing every part of these women together.
Yeah. In all aspects of life.
Yeah.
Right. And so I'm of the opinion that it's the patriarchy that wants us to be in competition with
Yes.
each
Thousand
other,
percent,
right? That's
thousand percent.
I'm of that perspective. And so what does it mean that, and again, this is where the ladies at, how are they doing it differently, right? If you take, if you can take folks out of their oppressive system, like what sort of thriving happens, and what sort of new um, ways of being do
Ideas.
you generate together.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's what I love about the outside, is that you're crafting rules in your backpacking group, you're coming up with those community agreements in that moment, and they're kind of separate from the larger systems at play. And so much of what I aim to aim to offer is a place that says, this is what community can look like, this is what collaboration can look like,
Mm-hmm.
this is what amplifying and elevating each other feels like, and how we do that in the midst of our own growth and our own challenges. And we all have something to offer to each other, and we're all valuable in that sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
So really just modeling that as a foundational place for us in our gathering. So I'm super excited about making it happen. It's one of those things, right, where life is busy, there's a lot going on, those 4 children are still growing and doing their things, and I asked myself, wait, why am I taking this thing on that is actually, it's quite ambitious to pull
Mm-hmm.
off a first event within a year. And I just, when that wakes me up at 3 in the morning, I'm clear that this is the work for me to do right now.
Oh, I love
And
that.
I love
and
that too. That's beautiful.
thank you. Thank you. And so I'm inviting all of the places, all of the people, all of the energy that wants to build that with me. And so I'm super excited to continue to be in this place of telling the story with you and just the folks that are listening, and to say, hey, what is it that you want? How is it that you want to be? And how can we
Mm-hmm.
do that together?
That's amazing. And that is such a good place to, kind of wrap it all into one for the day, with such a great introduction to you, the rally, where the Outspring is right now and where it wants to go. And what I love about podcasting, it was one of those things that I wanted to do for years and years and years, and finally just took the plunge to do it. And the whole my point for it all has always been storytelling, getting stories out there and letting people know that look, whatever it is, you can do it. I mean, you had no experience, you went out and you did it. Your sister had no experience, you went out and did it. You had no experience in this business that you took on, or putting together you have event experience, but to a different aspect, and you're just going for it. And that's just amazing. And I want people, especially women, to know, you just have to go for it. And magical things will happen when you
Yes.
go for it, and when we come together to support each other in that, whether that's just sharing each other's experience or being out there right by their side. So one thing that we'll be doing is, along this journey of you planning this event, is catching up. And I tell you, these episodes get hard to do because I want to talk to everyone for hours and hours. And again, that's the joy. We get to, it's just going to be a little broken up. We'll get back and we're going to dive deeper. We're going to talk more about the event and stay up to date with it and what's happening. And along that way, just more of your own journey, I think, will come out as well too. And just being able to relate to people realize, hey, I'm a mom, I'm in my 40s, I can still do something brand fucking new, and it can be successful. So
Yes.
thank you so much for joining us today. But before we completely sign off, just tell people where they can find you, how they can contact you, and we'll be sure to link all that in our show notes and on our social media too. And yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for those kind words. Also, I really just appreciate it. Again, you get working on something that can feel a little isolating. So just reflecting back, that is very appreciated. So I'm Tami Jo Benson, and I run the Outspring. You can find the Outspring online at theoutspring.com. That's also our social channel on Instagram. And I would like to invite your audience to participate in the building, in the sense that we have a user survey going on right now to find out what folks need. What are the critical components that are missing for you in that experience? So we do have a survey that has a raffle coming up, some excellent women-owned brands that are represented in the raffle as well. So that'll be, we'll send out that link as well. And so I hope to continue the conversation with folks that are interested in getting outside with us.
That is amazing. That's lovely. Like I said, you can find all that in the show notes, and just keep your eyes peeled. Like, take that survey and get in the raffle. I mean, if anything, like, that's a great reason to take the survey. Yeah. Like, why not? And then just stay tuned again as we keep updating with Tami Jo once in a while here on the Outspring and the event itself. And with Amber, do you have anything before we sign off that you want to say, ask, or anything at all?
Yes. As a mother of 4, I am amazed by all that you have done and accomplished, and you are very inspiring. And thank you so much for sharing your stories. It was a pleasure meeting you.
Thank you. This has been wonderful. I really appreciate it.
Beautiful. All right. Well, with that, we are wrapped up for this episode, and we will talk to you all again very soon. We hope you enjoyed this episode and would do us a huge favor, since we don't have any sponsors or anything like that, and would rate and review us on whatever platform it is you use, Spotify, Apple, Stitcher, whatever it is. And if you're listening and downloading just through the website, tearingituppodcast.com, leave comments. We'll definitely engage back with you. And on social media right now, we're just on Instagram. Tearing It Up Podcast is the handle. Like the post, share the post, comment on the post, whatever it is you got. Show us your love so we just stay relevant and show up in the rankings at all. So again, rate and review, please, and we'll see you next time. Thanks.